She was going to different psychiatrists, outpatient therapy, outpatient hospitalizations, and one of the places, they would pick her up, from school early and bring her to the program to work with them, and then she would be brought home, at the evening and everything. And I was hopeful that these types of services would work, but it seemed like even though she was going to counseling and on medications, she still was having these problems. And it seemed like every time they would solve one of the problems with her, like hearing the voices, she would start becoming depressed. I noticed that nothing was working, and I read on the internet, for a good week of different programs they have all over, and finally I came across DCF's page, and it had mentioned about voluntary services and how they'll do an investigation to make sure the family isn't abusive to the child, and really get a good look at things. And if the child is unmanageable and has issues to such a degree that they would be more than happy to, look into it, help the family and everything else. Nobody ever could really get a handle on treating Alex because she wasn't just like treating one problem, but many.
Despite these problems, she moved from sort of what they would consider more restrictive setting to a less restrictive setting in the group homes. And what was your impression of the group home treatment that she received?
I didn't feel she should go in a group home. I felt that Alex needed a lot of care, a secure environment, and she needed it, 24/7 watching over so she could be safe.
And I mean, sort of, she went from hospitals to group homes. She even ended up in prison.
Yes.
How did you feel about that? All the different places she ended up, and how unstable it was, and what was that like for you as her mother to have to deal with?
It was a total nightmare to watch my child going through what she went through, knowing that while at the hospital she seemed more stabilized than she was in, say, one of their residential facilities. When she would go to group homes, it was just beyond me how you could put somebody in a group home that just a week prior to that tried to hurt herself. I hated the thought of her having to be in prison and locked behind bars, because unfortunately that's not what she needed. I really don't feel that they took her cries out for help seriously enough, and had they done so, Alex may not have ended up like she was, today, unfortunately.
And how did you first learn that Alex had been killed?
Oh, God. That was the worst day of my life. On April 30th, I had watched the morning news on TV, and they were talking about a person murdered up in Hartford. And I just had this really awful feeling, like something had hit me. And so I kept reading and reading on the internet, and eventually I read that they had identified the girl, and it was a girl, and she was known as Alex. And around 3 o'clock on April 30th, the Hartford police detectives came here with the Prospect Police and told me that Alex was in fact the girl that had been brutally murdered. And it was a horrible feeling, because I felt like my whole world had crashed, and like a part of me died with her. and it was a total nightmare. I had trouble going to sleep for weeks on end because all I could think of was Alex and what that poor kid went through. And then I went through a period of trying to, tell myself, well, it's not real. It can't be real. Alex, is still alive. She has to be alive. And unfortunately, she wasn't. She was dead.